Welcome everybody to episode 17 of the Safello Show. Last week we talked to some venture capital panelists. This week we will follow up on part of the discussion we had then about Ukraine, since there are a lot of people that are contacting about this subject. Today with me is
Niklas.
As well as Alex on the virtually. Alex, yes.
Hello.
Hello. And behind the scenes, we always have Matt. Matt, how's it going?
Going good. Everything under control.
Good. So we'll start with the usual, with the ad for Safello. So for those who don't know Safello, safello.com. We are a cryptocurrency broker. We are the largest in Sweden, regulated in Sweden with the Swedish SFSA. We have over 250,000 users. On safello.com, you can find the links or the QR code to the mobile applications, iOS and Android. If you scroll down, you can find all our social media channels, including the Discord, where we're actively talking to our users and shareholders. As far as shareholders go, you can go to our investor page. On the bottom, you see investors there. And we are a publicly traded company under the ticker SFL on Nasdaq First North Growth Market. And here you'll find all the information about the company. I strongly recommend you test it out on the iOS app and Android before you consider becoming a shareholder. And that's it for Safello. Let's move on with the show. So as I mentioned last week, we briefly touched upon the events unfolding around Ukraine. And increasingly over the last 7 days, cryptocurrency have become an important part of that discussion. So we've seen both sides before the conflict started already adopting legislation with regards to cryptocurrency. So both Russia as well as the Ukraine expedited legislation around cryptocurrencies. Now, what we've seen since then is that there are more regulatory discussions going on. Maybe we can start actually there with showing the article on the ECB's statements. If you can pull it up, Matt. And there, no, that's not the one. Yeah. So this is from CoinDesk, where the ECB says it wants to have quick action on the crypto regulation following Russian sanctions. So on this show, we've talked before about the MiCA, the markets in crypto assets, with our compliance officer, Miko Gromek. And this was a statement by Lagarde to expedite also the MiCA regulation to have a better grip on the sanctions that are putting in place against Russia. The sanctions as such, without going into detail, we can say that we are in contact with both European and local authorities about how to implement some of these sanctions within the framework of crypto. And we see as well, in connection to that, the other article that you might be able to pull up that talks about the amendment that was proposed that sort of started in Sweden from the financial inspection to make an adoption that would ban proof of work mining. And a win for the cryptocurrency market, because that was escalated to European level to be incorporated in the MiCA regulation. It's the Decrypt article, if you can pull it up, Matt. The amendment was actually not adopted and removed. So here, EU lawmakers dropped Bitcoin ban from a draft of crypto regulation. So the notion was that proof of work as a consensus algorithm would be prohibited. And that was the proposal, which effectively means, since Bitcoin is a proof of work algorithm and still Ethereum is also a proof of work, that it would no longer be acceptable to deal with Bitcoin. Which for me is a pretty strong stand from the regulators to say, because this was essentially the chance to ban cryptocurrency if they had that intent. So by removing this draft from the regulation, they're giving actually quite strong signal in the opposite direction, which I think goes into the geopolitical sphere of what we're discussing. Before we move forward, maybe any other thoughts on this regulatory development from either you, Alex, or Nicholas?
You want to eat first, Alex, or do you have anything?
No, I think Frank touched on it. I'm gonna more go into the benefits of the crypto space in these times of war and how it actually has developed in a very interesting way. But from a regulatory standpoint, I think it's very interesting what is going on and how it will shift, because a lot of people's perception is perhaps that Russian oligarchs and Putin and such can use the crypto space, which is actually going to be harder than people think for them to use. So, and it's also a very from a crisis point of view for crypto, for Ukrainians and for Russian civilians that have nothing to do with this war. They have the possibility to actually move their digital assets and save them from financial destruction.
Yeah, maybe we're going in a different order than we discussed, but maybe we can pull up that thread from Ashish, Matt, because it's a highly recommended thread to read. It's a nice calculation for people that are unfamiliar with the crypto market, which is at the peak was about 2 trillion now. And it basically puts it in context of what it would take to, for instance, Russia to move around the sanctions in terms of the cash that it would float into the market. So here you have diving into number 2. Our team took a look at the data behind this. As stand the U.S. Treasury Department, Russia conducts nearly 50 billion in FX transactions a day. As the largest crypto, Bitcoin's volume is usually between about 20 to 50 billion a day. Russia's needs will basically encompass BTC and more. And I read other threads. I maybe we can link them after the show, where there have been some analysis on Russia's approach to circumventing the regulations, which seems to involve different methods, but not necessarily crypto. I suppose if that was part of the original strategy for Russia, they would likely have gone pretty big into crypto before. And we would have seen that price effect already a long time ago, in my opinion. So coming back to that thread, I wasn't necessarily done with it yet, Matt, because if you scroll down, the calculation is then even if you're sending $200,000 every minute and assuming the BTC ruble market was resilient enough to immediately replenish the liquidity, which is doubtful, or you're nowhere near $50 billion a day. Also, the total average daily volume over the last month for BTC ruble was just 11 million. Now, the interesting thing about that is that means that if you were to suddenly ramp that up, it will be instantly visible by everybody. Again, we're talking about a public blockchain. The volumes are public. So all those cryptos crypto that will be obtained through those methods would instantly be earmarked by services like Chainalysis, Elliptic, Vega Chainalytics, because it essentially makes it visible where the money is flowing in from. And of course, those are the kind of efforts that the regulators, authorities are looking into now as well, how they can follow those flow of funds in order to not block crypto, but use it as a means to circumvent the transactions from taking place. Which is an interesting kind of playing field. If we look at the response from the CEO of Kraken and Binance and others, they are obviously in support of regular Russians being able to still transact with cryptocurrency, despite sort of the sanctions that are on the oligarchs. And I think it will be an interesting playing field to see how that ultimately plays out from the perspective of the regulators and authorities towards the average Russian, which of course are a victim in all of this. With that, maybe we can touch upon the price levels, Alex, because there's some interesting data there as well.
Yes, let me just share my screen here. So I think we can start with Bitcoin, perhaps. Is it visible enough?
It is for me.
Perfect. No, but I think it's very interesting to have this touch on the crisis hedge of cryptocurrencies, because we haven't experienced anything like this before. We have I guess, one data point, which most of you maybe remember, which is the COVID crash, which is this area here. So during the COVID crash, we had first people were worried during February that it would spread, but when the news came out, I'm going to go on a daily chart here just to make it more clear. We had a massive downward movement or downward pressure. So just in one day, Bitcoin fell from around $8,000 down to $5,000, and this is around 40%. A lot of people were extremely scared here, but Bitcoin recovered, as did the markets, as a V-shaped recovery. This time around, it's been actually more stable than most people have thought. So in general, we have gone sideways between 30,000 and 60,000 since February last year. So for a year around. But when the Ukraine crisis started, we were around here in mid-February, when Putin started doing these military exercises and in Belarus and such. And when the news became obvious that he was invading on the 24th of February, we had a very downward candle here. So we started the day off at around 38,000 and we dipped around 10%. But actually the market recovered from that. And then when the crisis has developed even more, we've seen Bitcoins and other commodities really spike up. And this is a very interesting trend, because we have no place in Bitcoin's history where we can see, okay, this is how it has been reacting in different times during these type of crises. So we'll see if this holds. Right, there's a lot of speculation that this buying was because a lot of Russian people couldn't get their money out of the ATMs after they were removed from SWIFT and such, which made people panic into Bitcoin. So I think that's a very interesting development, and to see if people will use the Bitcoin network and such to save their wealth going forward.
I mean, I think it takes some time for people to do that. Like, how connected is Russia to be able to convert their ruble into Bitcoin? Like, it probably will take some time. But I think it's interesting, like a few points. One of them, just in technology in general, if you look at like Bitcoin or blockchain as technology, it's clearly not evil nor good, right? Like we can see now that it can be used for, like, it's both in discussion for, hey, can Russia as a nation state use this as a reserve currency? That is a legitimate question that, who would have thought that would be on the topic a few years ago, when the discussion was whether this was a Ponzi or not, or if it's only like guys that sit home with their computer that use it. So clearly the discussion have moved there, but it's also at the same time something that can be used to fund, like Ukraine went out with a tweet accepting donations. We'll talk more about that. Clearly it's two different sides of the same coins, and these discussions that's been very much hypothetical like years ago now happens. And I think the graph you showed is super interesting, how the market instantly reacted with fear, sell off anything that you have that seems to be risky, and then within 24 hours correcting itself and actually getting straight, like, hey, what do I want to have now? It was always in a way built as a system to say, it's like, you can have your financial system, why don't we build an alternative? We don't force anyone to use it. It's always been like, if you want to use it, if there's, say, a war or something and it works out, people are free to use it. And it's kind of like we're living it right now, where we can, we both see Ukraine use it. We haven't really seen Russia use it, but they could very well use it.
It's going to be interesting, like, to see if Russia otherwise is going to accelerate their move towards a central bank digital currency, because it's kind of binary. Like the move, considering the current sanctions, would favor away from the petrodollar. So then
I would say yes.
Then the question is, where do you move? Like, of course, China, you can see that they have already adopted a central bank digital currency. And I think maybe in that many Ukrainians can't get cash since the attack either. Yeah, we'll go into that part, because, like you say, the technology is neutral, right? And the technology has always been neutral. It's been politicized, very much so. But in this particular conflict, in a way, the good thing for crypto is that it shows both sides of this equation. So you can see, on the one end, it can, of course, be used in a small way to circumvent sanctions. I don't think, as we saw through the numbers, not in a big way. Like talking about earmarking funds, the Bitfinex hack that we talked about in one of the other shows, it was 2016 that they hacked it, and in 2022, this year, these hackers were caught. So those funds are always earmarked, and they can move that much cash around to any regulated exchange. So it ends up being transactional within sort of the players that want to interact with those funds. So in the case of Russia, that means that they could use crypto that is then earmarked, and they could use it to interact with other adversaries, right? So they might be able to interact with China, that is be willing to accept their Bitcoin, but no one else might accept those Bitcoins. And even more so, it becomes traceable for everybody to see. So then the rest of the world can watch how, in that case, maybe China and Russia will be interacting on their on the blockchain. So they would literally move those funds. So in that sense, it is more likely to be more of a reserve currency for Russia. Now it's hard to say how much they've stacked up. I'm sure that they've met with Vitalik. They've met with Putin directly. Met with Vitalik. I don't know what year it was, and they had a meeting talking about cryptocurrency. Obviously, Russia has made a move against the intent, I think, from the Central Bank of Russia, where I think actually Putin overruled to push ahead with legislation, which then came into effect just before the conflict. So it's very much there, and I mean we'll have to see what happens with the central bank digital currency. But I think it's here, like you say. This is the test for crypto, and it was either going to be a financial crisis or a war, and sadly we seem to be in both. One more thing about the price line, right? Because the notion has been that institutional money has come in, that institutional money actually increased the correlation with the equities market because it was risk capital coming in. And what we may have witnessed is that risk capital was taken off the table with some initial deflation of the crypto assets, but then you see this stabilization in the asset class where its real function ultimately carries the price. That's I mean how I interpret it. When you look at the price graph.
Yeah, and I think there's two events that have kind of hit the world that crypto nerds have been pondering about. Like one of them, I think, with Corona, with all the lockdowns, is inflation. I don't think anyone believed that there could be if hyperinflation is a thing of the past. No one could see how it could hit them. Pretty quickly when the lockdowns happened, many people realized that this is we're going to get a lot of money on the floor. What are we going to do with it? Where do we put it where it's kind of safe? Because the buying power is going to go away from the fiat currencies. So I think that was education number one. No, your money is not secure from debasing. You're not secure there. I think then it's as crypto is very volatile to discover where we're going. I think now it's pretty clear also with the censorship resistance, the discussions that we saw here that Ukrainians can't get cash out. It's right now their system is not very stable, right? You cannot get cash out. Clearly, they're not prepared to start to use.
We've seen the same in Russia, right? These long lines with the bank.
It's the same in Russia, but and we saw in El Salvador they tried to switch over to Bitcoin, right, in 90 days. That was hard, right? How do you get so clearly if El Salvador tries for 90 days to convert and get more and more people to use Bitcoin, and we can discuss how much they succeeded, but clearly not everybody's using Bitcoin in El Salvador. It takes time to make these transitions, but it is an alternate system that, if you have internet access in Ukraine or Russia, it's more accessible. At the same time, the blockchains, as you said, is if you move a lot, I mean, there's even these Twitter accounts that follow big money transfers, right? It's like you don't even need
Will alerts. Maybe you can pull it up, Matt. Will alerts on Twitter.
You wouldn't be able to, like, if Russia was serious to move into Bitcoin, it would be noticed, and not only by these major Chainalytics firms. You would see a will alert on Twitter. So it's weird.
And it's also what I find very, or maybe we can go into this first.
Yeah. So this is like, just for people to understand what they're seeing, like this essentially is a bot that has been created to automatically track the amount of money that is moving on the public blockchain. And depending on the amount of sirens that you see in the tweet, like this is a very big one, you see that the size is dependent on the amount of sirens. So in this case, there's 167 million USDT transferred to Binance, right? And how people read that data is that, okay, there's moving that much money in USDT is moving to Binance. Okay, why are people moving it to Binance? It might be to purchase crypto in that case, because otherwise, why move it there? So there's some there's some kind of assessment data analysis that can be applied to these movement of funds, and of course you can then look at that from a trading point of view. But similarly, you can look at that from like a regulatory point of view. Is like, okay, where is this USD senator coming from? Why is it buying this cryptocurrency? Where is it going after? Right. So like there's a lot of interesting data, and there's a lot of beauty in that. There's of course a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't want to disclose if you're a private individual. But we were talking about the cash and the lines at the ATMs, and we talk about the benefit of the ability that crypto provides. And it may be good, Alex, that you can run us through some of the things that we've been seeing. But before we do, you talked about the internet, because of course without the internet, it's obviously extremely hard to move value in a network that is on the internet only. And we've had in the past Blockstream that launched these BTC satellites to always have a connection. And I just wanted to highlight the article with Elon Musk, if you could pull it up, Matt, because this is actually very important in this, from my perspective, in the geopolitical picture. On the one hand, one might be curious about the fact that, okay, why hasn't the communication system been taken down? Why does Matt, could you pull up the Elon Musk article? Let's see if he's there.
Internet is decentralized is something, and while Matt finds the article,
yeah,
I mean there you go.
Yeah, so like, yeah, okay, the beauty of this, again, of just the power of the internet, is that it was one official from Ukraine that requested, like, hey, we want a secure internet. Can you stop working on your spaceship and help us here on Earth? And I think within 10 hours, Elon Musk, as company Starlink, managed to deliver these what are they? Computers, I suppose, or
what are satellite uplinks?
Uplinks, exactly, to connect to the Starlink network, securing like communication, and in that way also securing the transfer of crypto value, right? So, of course, historically, that will be something controlled by a government, by the military. The original GPS, of course, was founded, I think, by DARPA, if I'm not mistaken. So the internet is secured, and with that, cryptocurrency and the transfer of value can be secured as well. Because the alternative, and that was what we saw in Hong Kong when the protest happened there, is like a mesh network. But the mesh networks where people are transferring to each other over the phone, I don't think has the same reach or effectiveness. And I've asked on Twitter, but nobody had a good example of that being effective today. So I think Starlink, even though it's currently only one commercial party delivering that whole system, which one could also argue is maybe not the best case, and sure as hell the US Department, the US is probably listening on the Starlink traffic. I have no illusions about that, but at least value for the free world can move freely there. So that is a precursor. Maybe that goes then into, okay, so they have the technological means to actually interact over the internet, and with that do transaction. Let's have a look at what kind of things we've been seeing that's coming out, and that's been done to help the Ukrainian government and people.
Yeah, and I actually have this tweet from Fedorov.
Oh yeah, there, that's the one.
Yeah, so maybe I can read it out.
Yeah, read it out loud.
While you try to colonize Mars, Russia tried to occupy Ukraine. While your rockets successfully land from space, Russian rockets attack Ukraine's civilian people. We ask you to provide Ukraine with Starlink stations and to address sane Russians to stand. And Elon Musk, right away, Starlink service is now active in Ukraine, more terminals en route. And I think this is I think that's a very important part to emphasize what, maybe going back to the basics, what internet did to information, like Twitter. We can see this world coming together in a new form. Even though people have different stances on political landscapes, it feels like the whole West has united together, with not against Putin and this war. And you have these big international superstars like Elon Musk, where they really come to help. And so for me, information space, this is very interesting. And then we have Ukraine coming out, accepting cryptocurrencies. So instead of just information, people around the world can now fund the operation and stand with the Ukrainian government and its people, to really help them to protect their sovereignty. And I have actually the addresses, because everything is public. So this public address I've looked at, and right now, maybe we can bring that up as well. They have received around 233 bitcoins, which is around $10 million as of this moment, just from people around the world wanting to support this cause, which I think is a very wonderful, or very, very nuanced way to interact with each other all around the world. And they also had an Ether address. And what's funny in all this chaos is that after Elon tweeted this, people sent Starlink tokens and dogs of Elon to this address for 1.6 million crowns. So it's not as much, but still, people. Elon Musk is a little bit of a meme in the crypto space, you could say, and people use that meme to also support Ukraine, which is a very.
Do you have that address? Do you have that address visible as well, or no?
I have the Ether scan here, but this was taking a long time ago. Now it's like 173 tokens been sent, but I can share it.
Can we briefly go back to that tweet as well? Okay, you have it here. Like, do you have the overview? Yeah, and then you have the drop down, right? So I mean, it's good for people to understand that you have an address, and essentially we can send any kind of token to that. So even though like the call to action might be Ethereum, here you can see there's like $1 million, I think, DAI. I mean, you're going pretty quickly. So, but like, yeah, there's what is it? Tether. There's $2 million in Tether, $1 million DAI stablecoin. 190,000 BitHash token, USDC. So people end up just donating whatever, like in whatever token they want, and that is also beautiful that we saw. I think, I don't know, we have that tweet, but they were accepting, I think, cryptocurrency in Dogecoin as well, which it's really is something that's stuck with me looking at the play to earn market, where even though like Nicholas and I are crypto OGs thinking Bitcoin and Ethereum for the most part, but you see with other generations and people that are coming later, they don't actually care which currency they are using, as long as the flow of funds can take place. So for instance, with the Axie Infinity, I think they just use that token, and people use that to create their whole economies and are using it to pay for things, for actual goods and peer-to-peer, bypassing things that we, looking at the crypto market, find more obvious to use, like Ethereum or Bitcoin. And the same you can see here in this example, that you basically had a long tail of tokens. Is that right? You need to convert it, but we'll send the money the way we want to send it, and it's really open like that. I wanted to touch really on an important thing on that tweet that you showed of the address, if you could bring it back, because the biggest part, and it's often overlooked, but it's within crypto space often discussed, is identity and validation of addresses, right? So you have many spam bots that push addresses with giveaways, and they end up being scams and frauds. And what I find kind of fascinating is that the identity layer for blockchain hasn't been solved yet. And what end up happening in this case as well, if you scroll up a little tiny bit, up, not down, up, yeah, is that you see here the Ukrainian government has a verified check mark, right? So that's a validation, because the Twitter onboarding requires that KYC is required to get that check mark. At the same time, you also see others that have actually then done sort of double layers of verification by having other representatives with a verified check mark also confirming that this is the address. So you have this self-governing identity piece that has been overlaid over this address, which, the reality is that as the address puts online is like, how can you verify that that is in the control of the Ukrainian government? Now, for our sakes, and we'll talk about our efforts, we accept that this is the address, and so has the broader community have accepted this. But it's still a really big problem in our space to have that instant validation and continuous confirmation of control over that address as the time progresses. Because what happens if the Ukrainian government is overtaking and they no longer have access to those funds, right? Of course, all those donations can be stopped, but at that time that happens, that might be invisible. So it's a very interesting thing that I, at least from my perspective, observed, where people are then going by the verified check mark, and in this case, layers of verified check marks. Even though it's not entirely foolproof, as we've seen with the Tinder swindler, that guy on Instagram had a verified check mark. But I think the Twitter process is stronger than Instagram. But it was one of the reasons I think some of the women in that swindle fell for the scheme was also because he had a verified check mark on his account. So I mean, that goes to the big platforms to be responsible for that process as well. With that said, back to you, Alex, on running through some other examples.
Yes, so maybe what I find very interesting is, as you said, when everyone came together, I think Vitalik also commented on this post saying that this is the right one. And then we also had Gavin Woods, who is the co-founder of Ethereum, which said, if you also accept Polkadot or DOT, I'll send you $5 million, which he did, and I'll take that up soon. So just at the moment, the total donation is $35 million calculated by Elliptic. So I think the UN has sent $20 million so far, if I'm not mistaken, which this just shows the power of cryptocurrency and people coming together in a broader way. And here they also says that they accept Dogecoin. So you have these different ways, but it's also interesting when it comes to the NFT space, because what we see is that it's actually a Swedish company called Mauer has actually, which their goal is to pretty much have these digital arts, and now they've changed it to stand with Ukraine. So you will get this art piece if you pay $10, and all of this money will go to the Ukraine charities, pretty much, that helps the crisis right now. So I think this is a very nuanced way as well to monetize NFTs in a way to actually, all of this is created by a famous artist, and there's one NFT for every Ukrainian citizen. So it's very symbolic in that way as well. So I think that's a pretty cool way to look at it as well.
Very cool. I mean, we had the founder on the call the other day, for those who want to watch that episode. And they already had a charity angle to the Mauer project anyway. So I mean, they've done a lot of work to get this off the ground, and it is a beautiful way. It's also the efficiency of the flow of funds again. Like, of course, the fundraise is instant, but the distribution can be instant as well. Which obviously, typically, the efficiency of the distribution of funds, particularly in war zones, can be very problematic, as we've learned from talking to the people involved when we were in the Barclays program, where we assessed those kind of scenarios as part of the deal that we did with them. So that's awesome. And do you have any other examples that we can go through?
I have the Ukrainian DAO as well, which
Funky
is,
design.
yeah, it looks. I agree with that. But so the part here, maybe I can show the website.
So it's interesting, right? So they have a verified check mark, and it's a DAO. So then I wonder what that verification check mark then means.
Exactly, and one of their perks, or not perks, but for donating, people bet on this flag, so you will receive this as an NFT. So I have understood it, and they will donate everything to Come Back Alive and Save Life, which are two big charities. And what's interesting is the biggest bet right now is 2,100 Ethereum, which is around $6.3 million. So you also have a lot of money coming in, and you will get the symbol shown to you. So you have DAOs, you have NFTs, and you have, well, probably people have play to earn money that they send, and also, so it's the vast areas of cryptocurrencies. So that's what can happen when you can program money and make it for a good cause. Which I think.
So how does the betting system there works though? So because it's like these are
bidding or betting?
No, bidding, right? It's bidding on the. But so then the flag, but there's only one amount, which would mean that theoretically, if you look at the bit history, that there were multiple people. If I look at down, if you go down to there's multiple people who bid more than 6. What is it? 6. There are 2 people who bid 6 million. But are there the same addresses? So it's interesting when you dissect the data. You see like 1, 2, 3. Basically, you see 2 people primarily that are bidding it up to that level, right? Yeah, it's like an auction.
It's like an auction, and then you can donate directly to the contract as well if you want to. Which this is not the right one, because they have different contracts for different purposes. So maybe I can take that one up as well. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing and you want to donate, like, don't go into the contracts and try to figure out the donation part, right?
Exactly.
That's what I think we talked about too, the validation button. Like, it is a little bit not 100%. Like, it is hard to know, right? How do I donate to the right address? It's really important.
Very important.
Yeah, we'll touch upon that with what we're coming to now with our effort, but it is exactly that identity problem, especially in the fog of war, which is currently taking place, where you don't necessarily, you need this strong identity layer. Did you have any other project, Alex? The Airdrop, I think it was mentioned in the comments as well.
I don't have that here, but I think you made a tweet. I think Matt has it.
The Henrik Kugelberg was mentioning that. Did you see that Ukraine is going to do an airdrop to the people who donated crypto to them? Yes, we have seen that, and I think we have a reference to that live. If Matt maybe has it, or Alex.
Yes, I can see if I
see it 1 second
here,
from Matt.
I found it.
Okay.
I think this.
So maybe can you talk us through this?
Well, so excuse me. How I've understood it is that if people donate to this Ukrainian address, which was today, right before 6 p.m., they will make a snapshot of every transactions that have been going into these public addresses that we saw before, owned by the government, and you will get a token or a form of reward and a symbol that you have been in this freedom fight. And you will get airdropped some tokens for that.
Yeah, this was yesterday, Sweden, that they did it. Yeah, which is kind of surreal. Coming back again for Nicholas and my time, is like we're now living in times that, in a time of war, a government is collecting cryptocurrency funds and distributing that via an airdrop. It's surreal.
And I would say also how Ukraine, how good they've been with the media wars and how to pick up on, so the crypto community clearly wants to help out, and how quickly they can, it's like does anyone in the Swedish government know what an airdrop is, or would tweet that out in 24 hours? You know,
Yeah.
and how quickly, you know, the crypto community can respond and be like, okay, these guys get it, right?
And how quickly people, like, through these events will come to appreciate crypto and also adopt crypto, right? Because it does serve as an accelerant for cryptocurrency. Henrik Kugelberg, donating straight to Ukrainian government and military is really attractive to me. I suppose many would want to do that are not into crypto. Well, I think with that, we should get into what Safello is doing. Alex, you want to take it away?
Yes, sure. And as an effort from our side to be in this revolution, in a way, you could say, Safello has made it very simple for people to actually donate to the Ukrainian addresses that we have talked about today. And it's free, so you will not need to pay any fees whatsoever. And I believe, Niklas, maybe you can inform me here, but the network fee is that included then, or is that taken away later on?
Well, that's yeah. So Safello does not take any fee at all. So we do all this transaction. Everything gets batched, sent out. Of course, there's like a Bitcoin, an Ethereum network fee. It's pretty low at the moment.
So if you want to help, which is beautiful, I think, and it's a very good design from our designer Philip and so on. So creds perks to him. And then
maybe
it's very
you can a little bit. Sorry. Like I guess the text there isn't there. Okay, Alex, back to you.
No, I think maybe if we go in here, we can read about more about this. If you need more information.
What I was looking.
Yeah, this one, right?
Yeah.
So you have some information about the events that have surpassed and where the donation goes to. And this is a very simple, easy way if you want to help and be part of this history. And I think because the tweet said Thursday, the 3rd of March, the airdrop has not been taken yet.
No, it's at 2nd of March.
I think this.
Or it said it would happen now, is what you're saying. Oh, that might be.
Happen.
The tweet was from
tomorrow.
yesterday.
Exactly. So that's already, you have time for that as well. So maybe if you guys think I missed something here, you can.
Well, I wanted to say first, credit to our team who's really worked their ass off to get this out as quickly as possible. Maybe if you scroll up, one thing to point out is like we have the capacity to support multiple charities. So you see there the list. If you have right now we only have the Ukrainian government, and that speaks again to that identity problem. In line with what Safello stands for, is your Safello. We also want to make sure that the funds obviously go to the correct place. And in this turmoil, it's still hard to keep track of everything. So this one we saw several verifications of, and we just talked about it. So we decided that is the main donation option. Of course, we looked at traditional charities as well. They don't have the kind of setup that we saw that could allow for direct donation address. They have some integrations with third parties, but we were not able to integrate that. So as other options come available, we might be able to add these to the equation. It's very simple. You put in the amount of SEK that you want to donate for. You select, in this case, I think there's only one option now, and then you go through the regular option of the process. And what we have on the bottom, and it's maybe good for context to everybody all the way on the bottom, is this is not new to Safello. Like we've been doing these kind of charity efforts in the past as well. So we did donation pages as far back as 2014 with 3 charities, Lifebuild, Chivo, and the Lifebuild Foundation, where we really collected Bitcoin that we were then able to send to these charities. And similarly, we did that with Barclays as well, where we both look at the raising of funds. With that case, was with Venture for America, and then the reconciliation. And that was exactly the distribution problem that I just mentioned, which is actually the hardest part. And crypto really, as we can see from this airdrop, that might be canceled, as I see now. And that's very sad if it's canceled, but I understand it, because the last mile kind of delivery of those funds is also where largest charities typically suffer. Now, I'm very hopeful that with a Starlink system in place and an airdrop to the Ukrainian people, hopefully, of cryptocurrency, that they can keep an economy going, right? Which obviously is where things can really get into troubled waters when you talk about no bank system and no internet access, and the country goes dark. So that is at least my hope. For now, we directly send it there to that address, and we hope everybody will try it out. It's worth noting that also for any company that is based out of Sweden that has Ukrainian employees that want to receive crypto, that need to receive money, but they can't pay right now, Safello can expedite the onboarding of your company to help you send those funds to your Ukrainian employees in cryptocurrency. So, and we're going to take that on a cost base as well for those who need to get their money to the Ukrainian employees. And that's what we're trying to do. And of course, we do a lot behind the scenes with, as we mentioned, the authorities, both on a European level and a local level. But that is more behind the scenes. Any other additional things that we need to bring up?
No, I think we touched on a lot of them.
Yeah. Are we seeing any other questions? I see nice comments. All right, thanks for the nice comments. The kudos go entirely to the Safello team that have been working really hard to get that page up. We had discontinued the widget, so we revived it for this purpose. And I think, from our perspective, obviously, this is kind of a setup that we're likely going to keep for the future as well. As a way for people to make donations. With that said, anything for you, Nicholas?
No, I think this is probably going to come back at the Safello Show to follow up, right? Like what's going to hopefully crypto is moving into a new phase right now. Yeah. And no one really knows, the same as no one knows the next couple of days, weeks in the conflict in general. All markets are going to behave different right now. Crypto is used to behave like up and down, sideways. So, but to me, it's one of the things to keep an eye on, what's happening.
Great. Okay. Well, with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining episode 17 of the Safello Show. Hopefully more lighthearted episodes will come in the future. But I hope, everybody has to do their part. And I think, I hope that we will see donations through this. We will distribute it, I think, as a link to our users in the app as well. And hopefully this sparks some donations to the Ukrainian government and the efforts that are underway there. So thanks, everybody. And have a great day.
Thanks.